Smartphones aloft. Yes, Paris, the metropolitan Mecca, really does adore him. Here they call it a bain de foule, a bath in the crowd. And this morning, Macron went full immersion outside his home. But can this former banker with money, brains and looks woo that part of France that feels it is losing the lottery of life? He's got 2 weeks to prove it. Last night he bounded onto the stage with his wife Brigitte, his former high school teacher and quarter of a century his senior. By the way, their age difference no longer raises eyebrows here. His campaign had rented a giant hangar for the night, but the mood was more party than politics. With 24% of the vote, they came out on top, but the significance goes far beyond the numbers. Macron has never held elected office. He only founded his party a year ago. He embodies both the end of the old political establishment and the liberal challenge to the nationalist right of Marine Le Pen.
There are not many Frances. There is only one. France, ours. The France of the patriots in a protective Europe that we will have to rebuild. The task will be huge. I am ready for it, by your side.
And judging from the flags and the rhetoric, Macron believes that you can be both pro-France and pro-Europe. He's just made the point. He's a patriot, but he's against the nationalist vision of France. That, of course, is Marine Le Pen's vision. But he's also been very careful to reach out to people outside Paris, outside the big cities, who look on this man, former banker, as someone who does not represent their interests and has not heard their anguish. He's promised that that's what he'll do. Well, he's got 2 weeks to prove it.
It shows that France has changed and is ready for change, ready to embrace change, and a landscape that has been the same for like 40 years, and now people are ready for it.
Okay. And it also shows that the big divide between the left and the right is also now completely outdated, and it means that France really wants to have some novelty, to want to have some young political leaders.
But Marine Le Pen could still win, couldn't she? I mean, it's unlikely, but it could happen.
I know, and we will fight.
So far, it's looking good. I personally haven't met anybody that is voting for Le Pen.
But that's in Paris. What about outside?
That's in Paris. That's true.
What's also true is that any hint of triumphalism from the social media tribe is precisely what could spoil their victory. So what does Macron really stand for? Earlier this year, I spent a day with him and his smile outside Paris. He's untainted, untested, and on Brexit, uncompromising.
If your government decides to organize a Brexit, I will be pretty tough on it, because I think it can
You'll be tough on it?
Yes, because we have to preserve the rest of the European Union and not to convey the message that you can decide to leave without any consequence.
So Britain should be punished for its decision?
No, it's not to be punished, but to be consistent with such a decision. You don't get the passport and you don't get access to the single market when you decide to leave.
In Berlin, they're hoping that the man on the mound who wants to reboot Project Europe will end up in the Élysée Palace. Meanwhile, in the palace itself, the man who is still president added his endorsement today. Although with a 4% approval rating, that may not count for much.
Emmanuel Macron today represents the values that allow us to come together in this particular period, which is so serious for the world, for Europe, and for France.
And this afternoon, laying a wreath in memory of the Armenian genocide, Macron looked as if he was rehearsing for his next job. After a year dominated by Brexit and Trump, Macron embodies the fight back of the liberal global tribe. The battle is on. Well, the key to Marine Le Pen's success so far has been her anti-immigrant, anti-globalization platform and her stand against the French establishment. Today, she accused mainstream parties of trying to keep her out of power. And she pressed home her tough message on security too, describing her rival, Mr. Macron, as weak on terrorism. Well, our Foreign Affairs correspondent Jonathan Rugman has been following her campaign trail and speaking to Muslim voters in the suburbs about what her victory could mean to them.
Voilà, mais moi je suis la candidate du peuple. She calls herself the people's candidate, and where better to sell that message than a traditional street market in northern France. The Front National leader talked of savage globalisation and painted her rival as its privileged poster child who won't keep the French people safe.
The reality is that Mr. Macron is not a patriot in any way at all. He's a hysterical, radical pro-European. He is for totally open borders. He says there's no such thing as French culture.
At Marine Le Pen's rally last night, you sensed a daughter proving her out-of-touch father wrong. A far-right candidate polling well over 7 million votes by softening the party's message and bringing in the young, along with their baguettes. So what do you say to people who think the Front National are a bunch of racist neo-Nazis?
I think that I will say to those people that they're just not really listening to Marine Le Pen because she is not racist. We are not racist. I think that it's just like legends that comes from all the other parties.
The past?
Not from the past, but like from people that don't really know how it works in the Front National.
So Marine Le Pen has got through to the second round of the French election, polling more votes than she or her father have ever done before. And now history repeats itself. The entire French political establishment, from the right to the left, will gang up against her to try to stop her from reaching the highest office in the land. And no voice more important than François Fillon, her centre-right rival, who urged his supporters to vote Macron. But from one of Le Pen's advisers, there was no hint of surrender. But can she really climb the mountain and beat Macron?
Yes, it's not a mountain, it's a tiny hill. He's just a new guy that just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Will France really vote for Le Pen and then vote to leave the EU? It's a huge ask.
We are not asking them to leave EU. What we are telling them is that there is a future with France. France is not a dead nation. We believe that there is a strong future, that we have a strong identity, and we want to keep this identity and we want to regain sovereignty. And then we'll see where this path leads us. I don't believe that the UK got any big trouble by going out of the European Union. I don't believe that if in the end this is where it comes to, France will have any trouble leaving the EU.
On the streets of Saint-Denis outside Paris, there was jubilation at Macron's win.
C'est Macron qui va gagner, Inch'Allah.
Macron will win.
Macron, oui. 100% Macron.
100%.
Avec Macron, very good Macron.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And no sense that Le Pen could ever succeed. Compared with Macron, she has no chance. No chance, said this woman. We're not frightened, said another. She's not going to win. She can't. In a battle which pitches the old France against places like this. Not just the new France, but what is by now the irreversibly new. And the campaign will now intensify to paint Le Pen as the daughter of a father from the dark side, or Voldemort in French disguise. So much easier, since it was just a fortnight ago that she said France was not responsible for the roundup of Jews sent to Nazi concentration camps.
If there's anyone responsible, it will be those who were in power at the time, not France. France has been misrepresented for years.
And members of France's Jewish community are worried. Can she win? Really?
We never know. We never know. We hope she won't. We hope she won't, and we hope that the Republican values, the Republican circle, will be strong enough to defeat her.
And there's every sign that people will stop her.
Yes. Yes, but with the election of Donald Trump in the US, with the Brexit in Great Britain, we never know what can happen. So that's why it's so important to mobilize the French society.
It was just the first stage of a French revolution last night, and unless Le Pen's opponents become complacent or terrorism returns, it may also be her.
That was Jonathan Rugman. Well, joining me now is Nathalie Nougayrad,
the former managing editor of Le Monde and now a columnist for The Guardian, and Simon Cooper, a columnist for the Financial Times. Welcome to you both. So let's start with you, Natalie. Is there a danger that the Macron camp will be complacent?
I think that's...
And could lose?
Well, I don't think he's going to lose, but I do think there's indeed a danger of believing that everything's been solved and that this election has been entirely won. It will be very important for Macron, for his supporters to stay mobilized and to rally as many votes from the left and from the right as they can, because Le Pen will be counting on low turnout. And some voters thinking, oh, I don't like either Macron or Le Pen, so I'm just going to stay home. And this is the window that she's going to try to grab for herself.
Just to be counterintuitive for a minute, I mean, we're all talking about Marine Le Pen, who's been on the political scene for some time, as a sort of bolt from the far right. But you could argue that given the fact that France is in such a depressed mood, that there's so much malaise going on, that immigration is such a big issue, and security and all the terror attacks, that she should do a lot better, shouldn't she? Because she seems to be more in touch with the mood of the nation than Emmanuel Macron.
You'd have thought so, and she'll be disappointed with yesterday's result. I mean, in the regionals 2015, just after the terrible terrorist attacks here, she did better. She got about 28% in the first round. Now she's down to 21, 22. Her party will be angry with her. She will be disappointed. And yes, she hasn't capitalized on the mood as she could have done.
Why is that?
I think she's getting old. She's a known quantity in France now. I mean, Trump, Brexit were completely new or exciting. She has been on the political scene for a very long time. The Front National is 30 plus years old. It's not necessarily marching forward still.
So, that's true. Can I just throw in that that's true, but she also worries. She also worries many voters. I mean, I think there is still a strong democratic reflex in this country, and it has to be said that, although there's so much disgruntlement, so many anxieties over globalization, over so many issues, still, I think a majority of French people consider that Le Pen is a danger to democracy, and they don't want to see her get into the Élysée Palace.
So I watched her campaign in Marseille a few days ago, and I was struck by the stridency of her language. Of course, no hint of anti-Semitism or the Vichy Republic or anything like that, but very strident against Muslim immigrants in this country. Has she actually changed the tone of her party, or has she just exchanged anti-Semitism for anti-Muslim sentiment?
She has tried to look a bit more civilized. On the other hand, talking about how France wasn't involved in the deportations or wasn't France's fault, that is a revival of her father's kind of language. It's true, she's shifted the target. He hates the Jews most, she's anti-Muslim. To me, it doesn't seem to be a hugely cleaner party, no.
Can Macron actually go out into the country and unify the country behind him if he becomes president?
I don't think he can unify it in any kind of
homogeneous
way. I mean, this is going to be a still very fragmented political scene, and we'll see that if he gets elected. We'll see that in the parliamentary elections in June.
And to be cynical, can one say, if you're a Le Pen supporter, you look at Macron, the ex-Rothschilds banker, former economics minister, even though he had no party affiliation for a long time, has founded his own party now, you could say that he is the continuation of the elite by other means.
Well, he's absolutely a member of the elite, and the Front National call him a pure product of the system. What he can say, though, is, I was in the elite for a couple of years as minister. I saw it doesn't work. I want to do something very new. His opponents say he's Hollande's son. He's saying, no, this is a new path by an elite member.
In Berlin, they will be delighted if he wins. What does this mean for Europe if he does become the next president?
Obviously, it was outstanding that Angela Merkel's spokesperson publicly said on the night of the results, this is good for Europe. So, of course, he's got this very strong endorsement from pro-EU leaders. What it means for Europe is basically that France can stay in the club and has a hope of becoming a more economically healthy, stable member of the European club, and work towards strengthening it at a time when we know, with Brexit and with many other political trends on the continent that are worrying, it has to be salvaged.
But is this the fight back of the centre? Is this the rebooting of Project Europe, or does a lot more need to be done?
There are signs of pro-European sentiment rising in Germany and France. In Britain, there's a lot of anger, seeking a channel, pro-European anger. I think one consequence it will have is for Brexit, because Macron believes in Europe, he's going to say Britain has to pay a price for Brexit.
You told me so the other day, yeah.
I'm sure, yes. So this is not good news for Theresa May.
Okay. And so just finally, I mean, the fact that you can start a political party and it can dominate after a year, he has to take that to the next level, doesn't he? He's got to win those assembly seats as well, because if he doesn't, he is a lame duck president before he's even started.
Yes, I mean, there's a strong possibility that he will really, really struggle to build up a parliamentary majority for himself. So France is going to perhaps to be faced with some kind of coalition, awkward coalition building, which is not something that is in the political fabric or tradition of the country.
And this is not like the American presidential system where you can issue executive orders and you don't really need Congress.
Well, there is a state of emergency here, so that does give the president some leeway, yes.
Thank you, Simon. Natalie, thank you very much indeed for joining me here in the Place de la République. Back to Paris, to the 10th arrondissement, and you find me in the Café du Temple, the Temple Cafe, where I'm going to discuss the future of French politics. Now, why the future? Because when Emmanuel Macron and indeed Marine Le Pen addressed the voters last night and the supporters, they said this is about the future of France, and both candidates, both parties, look to young people to basically change French politics beyond recognition. Perhaps this election has already done that. So with me around the table, I have Baki, I have Marianne, and I have Alice, who all voted for very different people. So let's start with you, Baki. Who did you vote for?
I voted for no one.
None of the above?
None of the 11.
You had 11 candidates to choose from, and none of them fitted the bill for you?
No one convinced me.
Okay, no one convinced you. What about you, Marianne?
Well, I was supporting for Emmanuel Macron.
Right. And Alice?
I voted for Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
Okay, so you voted for the far left-wing candidate, who obviously didn't make it to the final round. How disappointed are you?
I'm disappointed, but I think we made a great score, and there is great hopes for the next elections for the parliament.
Right. I mean, the fact that someone who wants to forge an alliance with Cuba and Venezuela, wants to tax rich people 100% of their salary, the fact that he got 20% of the vote, what does that tell you about France?
It's extraordinary, and I think it's a sign that people want change, and that young people mostly, they want to change things and the way that society works.
Okay, so who will you vote for now in the second round?
I will vote for Emmanuel Macron. It will be hard too.
It'll be hard?
Yeah.
You'll be holding your nose and voting for Macron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will.
Okay,
but
so
I think it's
Marianne, you like
yes.
Emmanuel Macron.
Yes.
What would you say to both Baki and to Alice to convince them that this should not just be a choice par force, but something that should be enthusiastic about?
So I will tell them exactly the same we are telling to people and to French people for months, that we are also wanting to change society, to change the rules, and to give back power to the people. That's exactly all our movement is made for. Mm-hmm. We are only 1 year, and in 1 year we have about 2,000 members.
200,000 members.
Yes, sorry, yeah. 200,000 members, and all of them has been part of the project. All of them has been part of what we have built. So Alice wants to change society. We are changing society. We are changing the way politics are made.
Baki, they're changing society, and you're not part of the action. What's going on?
I'm part of the action because I've been I'm engaged all the time since a very long time, but I'm not going to vote for Emmanuel Macron because I don't think that he's going to make the changes that I need. Right. So the changes that I'm fighting for since years, I don't think he's going to make them because I've been in the government of François Hollande, and it was very disappointing for me. Right. So I don't think that I can understand that for Marianne is a part of changes. So if I didn't do the part that I did in the social movement, maybe I would have voted for Emmanuel Macron. But today I cannot vote for this communication and for this way of doing politics because I think that we need changes that are not only speech.
I mean, I should point out that we tried to get a member of the National Front or supporter of the National Front to be with us tonight. We couldn't find anyone in Paris, frankly, from the National Front, which is a big problem because the National Front is very well represented in many other parts of the country, but not here in the capital, in Paris. So if a National Front voter came to you and said, I am going to vote, obviously, for Marine Le Pen, I think she should be the next president of France, I think Emmanuel Macron is just a member of the liberal elite, he's just the old order. What would you say to that person? How would you convince them?
I would just ask them to check at the program of Marine Le Pen and just to see that what she wants is to leave the European Union. She will destroy our economic system. They will destroy our economy. The more touched will be the popular person with the poor people in France, and she's just xenophobia. She's just about xenophobia, racism, and everything we are not standing for in France. So she's nothing but a patriot.
But she does represent people who feel that they have missed out on the whole globalization business. But do you have any sympathy with them?
No, I haven't any. I think we have to try to understand why people are voting for Marine Le Pen in order to beat her. But I totally disagree with them. And I think there is nothing in common between people who are voting for Jean-Luc Mélenchon and people who are voting for Mrs. Le Pen.
Okay, but Jean-Luc Mélenchon and Marine Le Pen were both anti the euro and to some extent anti-Europe. So what do you think should the future of Europe be? And what about Brexit? Britain has decided to do its own thing.
I think that Mr. Jean-Luc Mélenchon was never against Europe. He is against the current Europe, the current form of the European Union, which is based on economic and not on ideas and values, and not on what they did to Greece. It was awful. It was unacceptable in a democratic country.
Right.
So
the danger with your crowd is complacency. What will happen if Macron does not get elected in 2 weeks' time?
Oh my God, I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine because if he's not elected in 2 weeks, that's not a problem with my candidate for real. That's a real problem with our democracy in France, French people.
Got to leave it there. Baki, Marianne and Alice, thank you very much indeed. Well, you heard it there, quite a divergent range of opinions, not sadly the National Front, but this has been an election special from Paris in France. Goodbye, see you tomorrow.